This is the Jerry Doyle Show.
Food technology that's happened since Clarence Birdseye in the 1920s invented flash freezing of food, that frozen food, canned food, basically has the same nutritional value as organic food and local food.
Wait. Say that again. Are you serious?
Are you serious? That's what I said at 4:47 a.m. this morning as I was watching MSNBC and listening to Rick Stengel, the managing editor of Time magazine, on the notion that technology from the 20s, courtesy of Birdseye, i.e. flash freezing and canned food, has the same nutritional value as organic. And I'm thinking to myself, did I just hear that? I did. I called Brad, pull the tape, and this, folks, isn't just somebody who's saying something silly at 4:47 in the morning. This is yet another move in the hostile takeover of healthy food. Joining us on the program to talk about this, Robert Scott Bell, homeopathic practitioner, nationally syndicated talk show host. Robert, welcome back.
Jerry, good to be with you. This is really, to me, this is the elite trying to convince the us peons out here who want to eat food like Grandma and Grandpa ate, that since you won't be able to afford it, just take the fraction of a penny frozen food. We'll call it the same, and you should be happy.
I'm stunned by this, actually. It's not good to be tongue-tied when you're a talk show host. But when I heard it this morning, I was like, huh? And now I just heard it again, and I'm like, is this the attempt to Zoom people or to prey on people's, let's just call it food stupidity, and I don't say that in an unkind way?
Well, look, I was reading this article that Brad had sent me. They said Time magazine published by Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, the discovery of Oprah Winfrey. And this guy is more schizophrenic than any doc I know, and that he says good things and bad things in the same sentence, so you don't know what the hell he's talking about. And he is now talking like, well, it's elitist, it's undemocratic to eat food that is organic because it costs more. And I'm thinking, this guy's talking about some kind of oil I've rarely ever hear of from exotic places on the planet I don't even know. And they're trying to convince us that eating healthy, people that eat healthy, are now not one of us. It's not democratic to want to eat well. In fact, the DSM-5, which is that psychiatric manual that says all of the diseases that are mental disorders, they've included one, and we may have even covered this together, called orthorexia. For instance, you don't want to eat GMO foods, the psychiatrist can say, I'm sorry, you have a mental disorder now. We're going to have to drug you, and under Obamacare, there'll be nothing you can do.
Let's slow down on that one there for the GMO, the genetically modified or the genetically engineered, the GE food, not General Electric, but genetically engineered food. There seems to be this trend towards condemning natural, farmers market, organic, raw, in an attempt to have big business, big agri, consume the smaller, independent, more health-conscious varieties of food. And if you take a look at Dr. Oz's piece, that's in Time magazine. On MSNBC today, the managing editor of Time magazine is on MSNBC basically saying the same thing. And this is a marketing campaign to squeeze the little guy out so big food can have an even bigger share of the flash frozen pie.
You read it exactly right. I don't believe for a second that Mehmet Oz even wrote this. I think some dietitian wrote it, and then he added a few personal anecdotes within it. For instance, he says he enjoys truffle oil, European cheeses, and heirloom tomatoes as much as the next person. I don't know the next person that enjoys truffle oil. Have you met somebody that enjoys? I don't know truffle oil at all.
I bought it because it looked. No, I bought it, Robert, because I thought it sounded cool, and it's probably been in my cabinet for 12 years. But I've never used it. But, it's like, oh, truffle oil. I must be eccentric or something along those lines. But, I mean, this is an attempt to really get big business to convince you that a canned soup loaded with sugar and salt and whatever else it is, that stuff you can't pronounce, is as good as what you talk about your grandmother hacking up a chicken and throwing in some onions, carrots, celery, and potatoes and making that not as nutritionally equivalent is, this is crazy. This is beyond believable that they're saying it, but they are.
This is it's a major public relations campaign, and you could follow the money right back up to those big agribusiness international food producers, and they're losing market share because more people are going local. They are starting to go to the farmers markets and meeting their farmers. For goodness sake, how elitist is it? I want to meet my farmer. Oh my gosh, you elitist scum, you. What is that? And also the discussion of the canning. Yes, canning's been around for a long time, but no discussion of the modern canning methods that include the bisphenol A lining, the plastic lining that contains BPA, endocrine-disrupting hormone compound that literally is turning little boys into older boys much too soon and little girls into older girls much too soon. No discussion of that. And Mehmet Oz knows better. He's just sold his soul, in my humble opinion, to be able to be on mainstream television to tout certain things that sound really good and healthy, but at the same time, he's still got it wrong about fat. Every little bit he gets, lean this, lean that, lean this. Saturated fat is not the evil, but he's still playing into that game too.
It's amazing how these guys are selling out. Dr. Drew did it when he was recommending certain drugs off-label. Dr. Drew's Celebrity Rehab. He didn't disclose that he got, $150,000 or something to be a shill for Big Pharma. And now apparently Dr. Oz is getting paid or is promised of being paid. And I don't know that to be true, but this is how my instincts lead me, or my gut tells me on this one, is that people are willing to compromise their integrity to help advance the causes of Big Pharma and Big Agri.
Yeah, and this is a guy that knows better because I've met him. He's been at some of the natural medical shows as well. But his wife I introduced one time at one of these events, and she's, in my humble opinion, a little smarter than he is, because when he went on talking about the flu shot on the show, which has proved to be an absolute disaster, the Cochrane collaboration proved that there was no efficacy for the flu shot, and that's a mainstream medical group. And his wife said, I'm not allowing you to inject this stuff into our children. Yet he was still touting it. So there's a lot of discord in this family, in my opinion. But, as you said right, in order to make it at that level of media, most people have to sell out, either politically, economically, certainly, but certainly they have to go against the principles that they may have held, if ever. And I'm doubting it with Dr. Oz with this misinformation piece.
Just so people have an understanding, you and I talked about something, 6, 7, 8 months ago, about a raw milk co-op that was raided SWAT team style, where they arrested, I think, 2 or 3 of the principals that were involved in this raw milk, natural cheese co-op, and they threw them in jail with a cash bond of something like $120,000. You don't have a cash bond of $120,000 if you're brought up on manslaughter, but yet the heavy-handed nature of that assault weapons SWAT-style crackdown of a food co-op, I think that really is something that sends a message as to what it is the intent is for Big Agri to squeeze out the little guy.
Yeah, it's stunning how much power these corps yield in regards to our government on a federal, state, and even a local level, and it bled down into the local police there in Ventura in L.A. And, the terrorism that was going on was really the government at this point going into gunpoint to peaceful people who were in a private buying club. It wasn't even a regular co-op. Literally, this was a membership issue beyond a co-op where it's a private organization, people that simply wanted to know more about the source of their food, wanted to drink milk as, again, grandma, great-grandma drank it, and if there are risks involved in it, they would say they agreed to take the risk and didn't need the nanny state government protecting them from themselves and their own choices. Why would the federal government, why would the FDA give a flip about a little food co-op, a membership thing in Los Angeles? Why would it come down with the full force of SWAT team? That tells you how let's say, concerned, it's the understatement, that these big corps are, that people are making choices that are not in line with the public relations and advertising campaigns of these multi-billion-dollar ad agencies.
There's a new report that came out with regard to genetically modified foods and genetically engineered foods or food varieties. And in the report that came to us courtesy of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they said that they're trying to figure out how best biotech agriculture can coexist with organic and conventional agriculture. Now, the pushback on this comes from the National Organic Coalition, because the introduction of these genetically engineered crops becoming popular since 1996. Now they're trying to say, well, we can peacefully coexist. I don't believe that they believe that. But what's happening with all of this GMO and GE food in the efforts to crowd out or supposedly peacefully coexist with organic growers?
The big concern is what they call genetic drift. Anytime you grow, let's say, corn, which is in the Midwest, grows everywhere, it's subsidized heavily as well, and now it's by and large 70-80% of all corn grown is genetically modified. So you don't even have the choice because they're not prohibited from selling without labeling. In other words, they don't have to label that it's in there, so people don't know. So those that are organic and want to maintain the integrity of what you call heirloom, the historical seeds that were not required to be bought every year, they simply want the integrity of their crops to be left alone. Don't mess with us. Seems reasonable. Don't pollute our crops with your genetically modified organisms. Yet in the past, the Monsantos of the world have taken to task, let's say, small family farmers who they have sampled the corn, for instance, coming from their little crops and said, hey, look, there's some evidence that there is our genetically modified genes in your crops. No fault of them. I mean, they didn't go there and sneak it out of Monsanto's secret lab. Literally, the pollen, transfer and the drift ended up contaminating their organic soil or corn. And so then Monsanto, rather than going, oops, we're sorry, sued these farmers and tried to, basically put them out of business for stealing their patented technology. So now this debate is all about, hey, how do we protect ourselves from that? And so the federal government, which is very much in bed with this biotech industry, including the Obama administration, has said, hey, we got a great idea. You buy insurance, little family farmer, and the biotech people will buy insurance. And if there's any cross-contamination, your insurance will cover it. In the meantime, to afford a policy this big, the family farmer will go out of business, while the biotech industry doesn't even need the insurance because they could pay it off with a fraction of a penny of their yearly profits. It wouldn't even make a dent. So that's why these organic farmers are going, hey, what's going on here? How do you protect us, the little guy? You're trampling on us.
And this coalition, the National Organic Coalition, is really David and Goliath scenario, but they're not just giving up gently on this one. They're actually digging in, and a lot of this, courtesy of what you do with your radio program and what you do at naturalnews.com, is educating people as to just what it is in our food, what our food, how our food is grown, but how it is that the market share is growing at the expense of people who have been family farmers or want to work in a co-op or contribute to a farmer's market. And now you've got the marketing machine out there of the Dr. Oz's and Time Magazine and other outlets that are basically zooming people that 1920s technology of flash frozen and canned goods is equivalent to something that you would be making on your own in a much healthier fashion.
Yeah, it's another great razzle-dazzle, and, a lot of the sleeping populace will buy it, but many won't, and that's the problem. The growth of the new media, even talk radio that's bringing this up, it's the things that can't be discussed, and they are being discussed. There's a big article over at my site at robertscottbell.com, and it leads the pathway, helps people to see the pathway of how Obamacare and GMOs are leading us into this medical slavery, whereas we know scientifically these genetically modified organisms in the food are creating all kinds of strange diseases, allergies, respiratory disorders, even aberrant behaviors that they're diagnosing as ADHD in children. And, of course, under Obamacare, they won't acknowledge the role of GMOs because they've adopted that GMOs are the same as regular food or organic food. And so down the road, you'll see the doctors that are forced to participate. One of them will have integrity and say, hey, I think your kid's eating this GMO corn, and he's creating this aberrant behavior because it's causing all kinds of inflammation in his body and his nerves. We need to clean up his diet, detoxify him. Suddenly, wind goes up. It goes upstream in Obamacare, and they say, "This doc, there's no code for that. In fact, if you do this, you're out of here." And what we really need to be doing is putting this kid on Ritalin or some other antipsychotic drug. And so the pathway for this, and the left got it so wrong when they said this is compassionate care. It's helping the poor that don't have medical care. There's plenty of medical care. There's too much medical care. What we got is the ignorance in food and how food is creating disease. And that's the disaster that Obamacare is going to make even worse.
Hey, Robert, I'm glad you're on top of this and staying on top of this, and you do it well. RobertScottBell.com, his website, naturalnews.com. another website to get a lot of good information. Robert's a homeopathic practitioner, nationally syndicated talk show host. You can get information about the dates and times of his show at his website, robertscottbell.com. The marketing machine is working overtime, but I know that you and others who are really informed about this are pushing back and trying to give people exactly what it is they need to know to protect themselves from the people who are supposedly acting in their best interest. Thanks, Robert. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Jerry. You too. You always impress me.
Thank you, sir. Always fun to be with you on the program. 800-449-8255. Right back.
The Jerry Doyle Show.